Capitalism, an essay from the 1619 Project, written by Matthew Desmond, a professor of sociology at Princeton, is a deep dive into what American capitalism really is. Desmond is very clear as to what he believes capitalism is, a racist and classist system designed to keep the rich on top by keeping the poor on the bottom. And as everything in this book does, this chapter ties back into slavery, with Desmond himself saying that slavery is imprinted on the DNA of American capitalism.
To understand the roots of American inequality, then we have to recognize the role of slavery in the rise of capitalism. As Matthew Desmond writes in his essay for the 1619 Project, capitalism in America was always more than about free markets or fair competition. It's a tale built on brutal exploitation and deep-rooted racial divisions. Desmond demonstrates that slavery was not merely a phenomenon of the past. These tools, habits, and ways of thinking created on the plantations became the essential building blocks of America's economic system. This not only undermined workers' freedom at the time, but also established persistent frameworks for racial inequalities that continue to structure American life.
The proof that capitalism is, as most things in America, rooted in racism can be seen today in these two maps. The map to the left is a map of redlining in Detroit, a practice where banks are less likely to grant loans in an area based on return risk. To the right is a map of predominantly black neighborhoods in Detroit. When overlapping the maps, the two match up, which can hardly be a coincidence because of how rooted in racism capitalism is.
This essay shows how slavery and racism shaped American capitalism and still affect our society today. We still see big gaps between rich and poor, unfair treatment at work, and racism in housing, jobs, and education. Even though laws change, the mindset of profit over people remains. The essay reminds us that history still shapes today and challenges us to fight for real fairness and justice.
This essay explores the theme of slavery setting up America's economy. America gained most of its early riches from the cotton industry, which was provided by the torturous work of slaves. Black workers were never recognized for their labor and were always overlooked by their white counterparts. They weren't treated as human, they weren't being paid, and they didn't have access to labor unions like white workers did. White workers were able to grow generational wealth, and black workers were fighting tooth and nail just to survive.
I learned that slavery was not just about free labor, but it shaped how American capitalism works today, including how businesses treat workers and how wealth is still unequal.
This essay resonates with me because we are currently living in an economy where the rich are on top. They are getting tax cuts while everyone else is trying to make enough money to pay for their groceries. This essay also made me realize how much slavery still has an impact on today, and it shedded light on how brutal and traumatizing slavery.
I already knew how unfair capitalism is, but this project showed me just how rooted in racism it is, and just how many people like Matthew Desmond, who write articles for the New York Times, are trying to enlighten other people about how rooted in racism capitalism is, because not everybody knows just how racist a capitalistic system can be, like the American capitalist economy.
This chapter on capitalism taught me that many of the systems we consider modern in business today actually came from slavery. I always thought capitalism was about innovation and hard work, but this chapter showed me it also relied on violence and discrimination. That made me realize how much of today's economy is still shaped by a history of exploitation. It challenged the way I thought about business and about how deeply racism is built into the structure of American wealth.